Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, original link to the video, top description below, right below that. Let's go.
American
Oh my god, that's loud. Hey guys, how are you? Good, I hope. Worst stereotypes about Americans when they travel. Sure. Let's go.
tourists are rude. German tourists like to hog seats. Chinese tourists only travel in packs. Visiting a foreign country or even a different region within your own country can be fraught with cringe-worthy
Okay. Only travel in packs?
moments. Tourists and locals often hold stereotypical beliefs about each other, which, while not the full truth, often hold an element of truth. While we can generalize about the behaviors of tourists from any country, today we're discussing some vagaries other countries and even other U.S. regions perceive in American tourists. Before you Americans watching get upset and bombard us with "not all Americans do X, Y, and Z" in the comments, please relax. This is not an official science. We're merely discussing some topics which have been frequently mentioned by locals of different nationalities when discussing American tourists. For you smug and smirking citizens from other countries, you also better chill. We might do a video on tourists from your country next. Sometimes before a tourist even opens their mouth and lets an American accent fly, locals have already pegged them as a visitor from the US. Why, you ask? Because of how they're dressed.
This isn't Disneyland!
Americans are known for dressing down. They tend to...
Okay, dude. True. Guys, this kind of looks just like... I know this isn't trying to depict Amsterdam. I'm just saying it looks a lot like the place where it happened because it happened over a bridge. But if you've heard this before, you know what story I'm telling, so just go forward. But I was riding the bike, and I'm an American, like... You know, they're thinking, you know, like, this isn't just a fun little ride here. I'm going somewhere on a bike. And to me, I'm like, what? You don't, that's what cars are for. But I guess I was acting like an idiot, kind of, and she's like, this isn't Disneyland. And then I was embarrassed.
because of how
Somehow she knew I was American, and I didn't say a word. She saw me, not 5 seconds.
they're dressed.
And she knew.
Americans are known for dressing down. They tend to focus on comfort and wear ill-fitting or baggy clothing. They love sweatpants, shorts, and have even been known to wear pajamas in public. Sometimes American tourists will dress inappropriately for visiting certain places of interest, such as wearing shorts to a religious site, thereby disrespecting locals. When not wearing sweatpants, Americans like to wear jeans. They also like Hawaiian shirts, clothing with the U.S. flag or patriotic
What's wrong with sweatpants? All right, they're comfortable. They, you know, look at how like flexible I am, guys. Like, you know, what's wrong with sweatpants? And yeah, I just left my house looking like this in front of people. What is wrong with that? I think even for an American, I'm extra bad with fashion. So
imagery, and shapeless t-shirts with logos or slogans that mention sports teams or places local to their home state. Americans enjoy accessorizing their comfortable clothing choices with fanny packs and ugly garish footwear, such as flashy sneakers, plastic clogs, and the ever-popular socks with sandals. The finishing touch is often a baseball cap or sun visor, which is frequently worn inside, unless an establishment specifically forbids it.
I'm feeling attacked. This is targeted
When Americans are nicely dressed, sometimes they can even be picked out as being from the U.S. because they'll still wear sneakers or flip-flops. Has America's propensity for underdressing been scientifically proven? No, but online polls for worst-dressed countries and worst-dressed tourists frequently have the U.S. ranked near the top of the list. With anecdotal evidence from internet forums such as Reddit, it's fair to say that most American tourists could step up their fashion sense. American tourists often give a big clue.
Again, even for standards around here, I'm very bad with dressing, not caring, okay? And yeah, like it's part laziness. All right, I'm part really lazy and I just don't want to put the effort in. And two, I like comfort, okay? Over fashion. Why do I have to look good? I understand like a fancy restaurant or a religious site or something, but Can I just be comfortable, please?
clue as to what country they're from by smiling. That's right, the rest of the world thinks that Americans smile too much. Long articles on various websites and even an op-ed in the New York Times have discussed this issue. American tourists smile frequently, brightly, and often have an overly friendly demeanor. Other countries tend to
Hey,
be
how
more
are ya?
conservative with their smiles. Locals find such behavior creepy or off-putting.
Oh, God. And they look just like the Harry Enfield couple, American. Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you?
Be more conservative with their smiles.
I'm sorry if you
find
don't.
such behavior creepy or off-putting. Americans' blinding smiles are part of their cultural landscape. In 2015, a team of international researchers found that countries with a large presence of immigrants tend to rely on body language to communicate friendliness, build trust, and cooperation. With a long history of immigration and 83 source countries represented by its citizenry, the U.S. has a larger immigrant population than any other country in the world. Smiling is a quick way to try to connect with others or be pleasant when you don't know what to say. Add to that American dentistry and beauty standards, which emphasize straight white teeth, and the smiling can be perceived as being fake or passive-aggressive. Some would accuse U.S. tourists of being superficial or hiding their true feelings behind a toothy grin. Some Americans take the overly friendly demeanor even further. They smile and try to connect with locals by adopting certain local mannerisms or slang to try to fit in.
This is fascinating. I never thought about that. So Americans, there's that study that shows Americans have to rely more on like body language to communicate because of the cultural differences. That's so cool. So that's suggesting that in areas where it's more monolithic, where like a society that is more culturally, like everyone is very similar and their parents live there and their parents, there's kind of an underlying intuitive, just kind of comfortability. Whereas over here, everyone's from a lot of different places, and so you don't really know, and so you have to rely more on body language. That is so interesting, and I've never thought about that.
Locals also find this type of behavior odd and accuse Americans of trying too hard, or even cultural appropriation, depending on the American's action. The difference may lie in the culture of American friendships versus the friendship culture of the country they're visiting. Americans tend to be outgoing and easy to generally get to know. They love knowing lots of people and have casual relationships with many friends. When meeting someone new, Americans make small talk by asking about a person's career, as an easy way of gaining some insight into who that person is. While on the other hand, locals in many countries consider a person's career less vital to their identity and view questions about what they do for a living as boring, rude, trying to categorize them or put them into a box.
I think if it's someone you haven't seen in a long time, but you knew them somewhat well, to ask them like, hey, what are you doing now, is okay. But I do think, excuse me, if you're just meeting someone, asking them what they do isn't maybe a great question to start with, in my opinion, because it's going to be a question that you answer that, there are a lot of like people are going to kind of judge you on what job you have, and instead of just getting to know you as a person before asking for answers to questions that you're going to try and really like calculate how this person is, I don't think that's a great thing. Because I think it will kind of give you assumptions about the person and kind of put a wall up to getting to know them, like you just said right here.
For a living as boring, rude, trying to categorize them or put them into a box. In many countries, people are initially hard to get to know, but have longer-term, deep, intimate relationships with a few friends as opposed to quickly built superficial relationships with a large number of people. Americans, impatient to force a rapport or bonds by appropriating local culture, can be seen as insulting or embarrassing. Of course, when Americans open their mouths, the American accent comes out. If it's a a specifically recognizable accent such as a Southern drawl, New Jersey spiel, or laid-back West Coast accent, locals may recognize it and have certain expectations or feelings about certain American tourists simply because of the accent. This even frequently happens in America. Southerners are dumb hicks, New Yorkers are impatient, and on and on. U.S. citizens have American entertainment being broadcast around the world to thank for that. American tourists are often...
I made this comparison before. We're the Truman Show. That's what it seems like. Like, a lot of people know a lot of stuff about us because of our entertainment, and I guess politics too is very open and crazy. And then a lot of Americans famously aren't very knowledgeable about places outside of, you know, North and South America. I'm generalizing here. But yeah, it's like I'm going to meet someone and like see what their culture's like, but they like already have an image of me because I'm American. It is a little strange.
Seen as culturally ignorant, brash, and wanting to be catered to. These traits display themselves in many ways. Americans seem to prefer to stick to fast food such as McDonald's when they travel, instead of trying out local cuisine. They often get confused or angry when they can't use American money in other countries. They seem to have the attitude that throwing their money around will get them what they want.
I'm sorry,
Also,
that's just being stupid, okay? That's just not being smart, or like you're intentionally trolling to try and act super American. Right? Which sometimes I'm guilty of doing. Like, I'll see stereotypes of America that I see are kind of funny and true. And when something comes up, I'll kind of like play into it before I even realize I'm playing into it. So it's kind of like a... But, I mean, I'm sorry. If you think that the currency in your country is what they use other places, it's just not very smart.
Countries. They seem to have the attitude that throwing their money around will get them what they want. Also, Americans rarely take the time to learn anything beyond the surface of local culture. They're ignorant regarding geography and global affairs. Many surveys have confirmed that Americans tend to know less about the world than people of other countries. Most recently, a 2016 National Geographic survey quizzed over 1,000 U.S. college students about geography, current events, and economics and world trade. Most respondents were only able to get half the questions right. They scored about 55%. On the flip side, locals report Americans as being offended when they're only familiar with large cities in the U.S. and don't know the small town in the Midwest the tourist is from. Along with the cultural ignorance is the attitude that Americans are somehow better and other countries and people exist.
I remember always my parents like going on trips as a kid, and when I got older, I would do it as well if I'm abroad or meet someone not from the U.S. and they ask where we're from. We won't say like, oh, this town in Rhode Island, or we won't even say Providence, Rhode Island. I remember we'd always either say New York or Boston, because it's still pretty much true. I mean, we're right there. And yet, like, we know, like, you know, these people are probably going to know where this is.
Solely for the entertainment of Americans on vacation. U.S. tourists forget that they're guests in another country and should respect the customs and traditions of their host nation. Sometimes American tourists feel no compunction in taking a picture of people belonging to certain religions or cultures as some sort of vacation memento, often without asking.
The bottom of the arms, I thought they were in like a suit. It's a burqa, right?
Certain religions or cultures as some sort of vacation memento, often without asking said person first. American tourists are notorious for being monolingual. Along with their pushy, needing to be catered to attitude, vacationing Americans often assume that people automatically speak English. They're surprised, frustrated, and can even be offended when locals don't speak English. Puzzlingly, they've even been known to speak...
What does kind mean? So I speak something English. I speak good English. I speak no English. Ich spreche nicht English. Or ich spreche English nicht.
Americans often offended when locals don't speak English. Puzzlingly, they've even been known to speak English louder and more slowly to try to get people to understand. Surveys have shown that about 20% of Americans speak more than one language as opposed to 56% of Europeans. In many other countries, students are required to learn another language before graduating high school. In America, some school districts encourage learning other languages. However, nationally, no such rule exists. 20% of Americans study another language in school as compared to 92% of your
study. I took 6 years of Spanish. I think 6 years, 7th grade, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And then a year in Italian in college. The only thing I know from in college taking Italian is buongiorno. And that's because it was the giant word on the cover of the book. And I don't even know what it means, really. And I cheated so much in Spanish. I wasn't a good student, if you can't tell.
European students. Of the bilingual Americans, many are immigrants or first-generation Americans. Professionals
And
in
I'm
the
sure a
restaurant
lot
sector and other
are on the American Southwest border, which proves to you how people are going to learn an English more depending on how many places around them don't speak their language. If you're in Europe, imagine everyone in Europe spoke German, like from Turkey, or you can count Turkey or not. I know some people don't say, but from Spain to Greece to Ukraine to Finland to Iceland to Spain, right? All spoke German. Do you think there'd be a lot of people who were as bilingual as they are now? There are other factors, but I think that's a giant one. So, yeah.
Many are immigrants or first-generation Americans. Professionals in the restaurant sector in other countries are often not impressed by the American tourists that patronize their establishment. When Americans do forego the fast food and try local dishes, they tend to be complainers. Not only do dining American tourists have the customer's always right attitude, they want their food to be served quickly and gallop through their meal.
My fish smells like fish.
This behavior is odd to cultures where dining is important. Lingering over your food and enjoying the settling and conversation is a huge part of the meal. Also, local servers find that Americans have childlike palates. They'll ask for condiments such as ketchup so they can douse their food before eating it.
What's wrong with ketchup? I don't get it. It's sweet. It gives a nice sweetness to what you're eating. I don't know why it's like...
American tourists are highly critical of food portion size in other countries, calling them tiny. It's true, serving sizes in typical American restaurants tend to be around 20% larger than the average entree served in Europe. This feeds into stereotypes of American tourists being fat and greedy. The fat part is true. Some 2/3 of Americans are overweight. People in other countries assume that American tourists are wealthy. The U.S. has a powerful global economic standing and
Guys, it's so true. If you haven't been to Europe as an American, most of you guys are European watching now. Maybe there's an American here. It's so obvious. It is a stereotype that does not need a second of, excuse me, sorry. That does not need 1 minute of research. It's so obvious. And you want to say, oh, there's so many skinny people in Europe. It's like, no, that's just normal sized people. There are a lot of, again, just to, you guys do smoke much more cigarettes, but the cigarette smoking problem is not nearly as big of a difference as the obesity. It's crazy just how much healthier people in Europe look.
Regard to other countries, many American TV shows feature stories about the upper-class Americans. Americans have big houses and multiple cars. Furthermore, they're on vacation in another country. The U.S. has a tipping culture too, and so Americans expect to tip when they go overseas. Also, Americans sometimes get large sums of cash from foreign ATMs. To locals, this reinforces the idea that American tourists are rolling in the dough. In addition to being depicted as wealthy in the entertainment media, young Americans are also displayed as carefree party animals. When young Americans go overseas to countries with lower drinking ages, they frequently go overboard on enjoying the liquor, living up to the image depicted on TV. Of course, not all American tourists are slobby, fat, shallow, English-speaking only, culturally ignorant, drunken party animals who toss money around. However, we can't ignore the grains of truth in these stereotypes. Thankfully, many people meeting American tourists visiting their countries realize that people are individuals rather than just a stereotype and treat them as such. What's an awkward experience you've had as a tourist or with a tourist? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video, American Things Other Countries Find Weird. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.
Thank you. What was I going to say? 2 things. One is the drinking age thing. Oh my God, I forgot the other one. But one thing at a time. I think that the lower drinking age in Europe might contribute to might be the main contributor to a healthier relationship with alcohol. Actually, I think that counterintuitively, lowering the drinking age to like 17 or 18 might be better, because a lot of the times in the US, especially in college, the first time where you can drink, honestly, when you go to college, you can drink. You don't have to be 21. There are going to be plenty of people who have beer for you. But it's like you go away from your parents and are able to drink a lot for the first time at the same time. Like, those two things happen. And I think it just contributes to just a lot of American kids just going wild when they do have the opportunity to drink, because it's so much more restricted than in Europe, if that makes sense. The other thing I was going to say, don't remember.
Comments. What's an awkward experience?
Oh yeah, just the awkward experiences are the ones I said with Disneyland. It wasn't really awkward. It was just I felt like an idiot. I guess that's what awkward means. And the bathroom one in France. I have guys, I am limited with my experience in Europe. So if you've heard one of these before, you've probably heard them like 50 times. They're the only examples I have to give. But the two ones that stick out was when I was acting like an idiot on a bike, and a Dutch woman just knew I was American right away without talking. It was just like, this isn't Disneyland. And then the French guy in the French restaurant where I asked to go to the bathroom in French. Voulez-vous? I forget. I asked it in French. He never heard my voice or speak before, and he just reiterates in in English, Jesus, downstairs to the right, like no hesitance. And I thought I clearly was very obviously American. I guess it's like I had my backwards hat on, like, and like my hair. I was just like walking or like this. And I was clearly American, I guess. Love you guys. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. And love for you to like and subscribe. And hopefully I will see you guys next time. Bye.